just, I always come in expecting to see Juan, in the hall. I still have not completely, internalized that he will not just be here again. He was such a stalwart person in the department. He was always there whenever anyone needed him to if you had an idea for changing your lab, he would help you set it up. If a student needed help, he would help the student. He remembered the students. So in fact, we didn't need to because he always remembered them. If you needed help, he would help. When you come in the morning, he'd always have a big smile. And he was just so even-tempered, regardless of what was going on. And he never said no to anything. If you asked him for anything, he would, do twice as much as you had intended asking him for. So, I think we really needed to remember. And I'm going to start out just in a way to prime the pump with something from Joel Gersten, who couldn't be here. He is going to try to come later on, but I'll do that. And then, hopefully many of you will, just from your seats, share with us or an anecdote that you'd like to share with us. So this is from Joel, and he said, "I have very fond memories of Juan. I remember when he first came to the department and used to volunteer to help out with Xeroxing and other clerical tasks. His hard work and friendly demeanor were recognized by the whole department, and we all took a liking to him. And I think the feelings ran both ways. The chairman was actually able to get a college ride for him and to help him wade through the murky immigration issues." Who was chair then? Anybody?
Mike Ahrens.
Mike Ahrens. Okay, so it was Mike. Okay. Over the years, his continued devotion to faculty, staff, and students alike earned for him promotion, and he was given additional responsibilities. Juan was a type of guy that you could discuss anything with. He knew about science and sports and growing plants and how to fix almost everything and how to do price-wise shopping. Now, these are things if I'd known, he named it. He always had a smile on his face, and he had a good sense of humor to match it. He was tolerant of all the diverse students, and I would say of all the diverse faculty who take our labs and teach our labs, and he made the labs run smoothly. And most importantly, he was a friend to all of us who knew him, and his memory will always be cherished by us, and his absence is sorely missed.
That's too bad that we have to wait to the Juan's demise in order to praise him, because he's everything that Miriam said he was. Juan started working in the physics office as an office aide, as I remember. That was his job, and at the same time, he was a student in the EAS department. Got a degree there. I think he was a student in one of my Astronomy 100 classes. So he goes. His connection with City College goes even further back than just the office aide job. When Alvin Diddy retired, we were stuck without a lab technician for the teaching labs, and we went through a couple of people who didn't work out, and we were lucky that Juan stepped in. And he would be the most unlikely person to do this because he was not particularly trained in technical matters, but he learned everything very, very fast, and pretty soon the labs were always ready before we went in there to teach, and the equipment was always ready to be fixed. I mean, he had them, if you had a problem with the lab, a piece of equipment, you would just tell him and he would have it done. And he was diligent with all the things he did. He helped students, he helped faculty. I don't know how we managed to run our labs without him. And I'm glad I'm retired now because I don't know how you're going to handle it without him now. I think you're all going to be burdened even more heavily without, I'm sure that you'll get somebody to replace him, but I don't think you're going to get Juan again. And he had a creative side to him. When I was deputy chairman, he was always scrounging for computer equipment. I don't know if you ever walked into his office, but he had a computer center set up in there. And what he was doing with that was, first, remember the data sheets? He was the one that designed those and had them ready for us. So all we had to do, all the students had to do, was to fill in the blanks. And then he had the reports, the whole report ready. So no student really had to have an excuse for not having their labs in on time. All they had to do was follow what was there and had it in on time. And Juan was absolutely indispensable. He was 125% on everything. If you asked him to borrow one of the carts so you could move your books or whatever, he came with the cart and he did the heavy lifting. And which reminds me, you're never going to get rid of my books from the department office now, because I was really waiting till I could get hold of him so I could get the books out to my car, but that would never happen now. I really miss him. I miss him as a friend. We socialized actually outside of classes a few times. I did not know, I don't think anybody else knew that he was married at one time, I guess, and had even a son. And my wife was always looking for partners for, she was a school teacher, for her unmarried school teacher friends. And so, I mean, we once went to a party, and we didn't tell him that he was the fourth person, but he knew that when he got there, that he was obligated to look after my wife's friend. And he was a real gentleman about it. I mean, I don't think they clicked or anything like that, but you know, he offered to walk her home and all that, so I was genuinely grateful. So anyway, I'm going to miss Juan, and I'm sure you will too.
Cool. And I just retired from this wonderful institution after 40 years of service. My first 18 years was here in the Physics Department. I knew Juan for many, many years. And as Victor said, in reference to socializing with someone, I asked Juan if he'd like to join me and go to Washington, D.C. in 1989 for a stamp show. And both of us were stamp collectors, and I didn't have to ask him twice. Last week, my son comes over. My son is 29 years old. I said, Joe, we're having a memorial service for Juan. Like this, he goes, I remember Juan. I said, right, you remember Juan. He said that I was 8 years old. We went to Washington. It was Mom, me, you, and Juan. We went on a Thursday night. We drove. We made great time. We stayed in this hotel that the average cost was about $98 for a room. We spent $19 for a room. And that's what the place looked like, but we had a great time. And he said, Juan was like a father to me. I said, how so? He said, when you go in for the opening for the stamp show, everybody tries to get the first day cover, the little booklet, because you were there. And if you had, and they only gave out so many. So the doors open up, and it's Juan and I and my son, and he's in the middle, and we're rushing in like a sale at Macy's. And I said, I pulled away a little, and Joe said, Juan, grab me. And he said, you're not going anywhere. He says, don't worry, your father will get 3 copies. I come back with 1. That's all. I said, uh-oh. So Joe says, don't worry about a thing, Dad. And him and Juan went over, and they came back with 3 copies, the 2 of them. So I could talk all day, and as Victor said again, whatever you needed from Juan, and he also read your mind, so it's not what you needed, you went there. And my own personal thing is, I kept telling my wife, I would die if you came to me and said, Bob, I need something, I couldn't take care of it. That's what kind of guy he was. So it's great to see this wonderful turnout of friends. I'm really touched, and if Juan was here, he would be touched as well. Thank you very much.
Looked you straight in the eye, and you knew that he saw you, and you felt that he knew that you were thinking and what you were thinking about, and he had this little gleam at the edge of his eye. Juan, I think, and I know you agree with me, was a very, very special human being. And we will find someone to do the job, but it's not just the job. It was the person that Juan was. He was unique, and I can still see him looking at me.
Physics Department about 10 years ago, and I taught physics 7 and 8. Now it's called 207 and 208 for many years. And at some point, Juan appeared. I mentioned, and he was just, well, everything that people have said about him, that's true. It was just great. There was no personality clash. All my wonderful colleagues, I'll say something and they'll say something maybe, oh, you think so, don't you? But there was never anything like that. It was just the job had to be done, it was done, and he always gave more than anybody asked for. When a lab had to be done, he was there. And even outside, for example, for many years in my office on the 3rd floor, I had a big giant bookcase, which I filled with things which I later threw out. But it was there. And it was there because Juan helped me get it and move it into my office. And just that's what he did. A couch was there. I had no idea that a couch could be had. There's one with the couch. And it just made working in the department so much easier. Things were done, labs were ready. By the way, labs are a humble part of the physics department education. They were really, really very nice. And what made them nice was that it was obvious that they worked. If you want to demonstrate a nice little physical principle, it doesn't help if you need in nuclear physics to demonstrate that a lever works, because nobody's going to believe it. But they're really very straightforward, and I was always very impressed by them as a student and also as a faculty. And Juan was there, and it just made things life a lot easier. That things went so easy, and things went like rehearsed even when they weren't rehearsed. It was just a wonderful, wonderful event. And I don't think we get enough to like him, because I'm not that good. And all my wonderful friends are not that good. But he was that good. So good luck to us.
It embarrasses me to think of some of the things I asked Juan to do. Because he was so congenial and so willing and so able. That one day, we used to teach about 40 kids in the astronomy class, just the evening class. And then it went up to 60, and then so on, and it finally came to 300, where it is now. And at some point I realized, gee, I need a proctor when I give an exam. And I have to give 4 separate exams with 300 kids and so on. And they're all arranged in a very special way and so on. And I said, gee, I got to do this, it's getting too much, I really need a proctor. And there was Juan walking around. I said, Juan, can you do me a favor? And of course it was after 5 o'clock. And I got walking down, so I asked him if he could run. And I said, oh, by the way, it's very complicated because I have to, in one row, there's 4 exams, in one row I give A, B, A, B, A, B, and the next C, D, C, D, in order to make sure that no kid is sitting next to somebody taking the same exam. front or back of it. And I explained, what I mean, and he created half the papers, and he handed them out very well. And he proctored much better than I do. He kind of those two kids looking at each other, I would never see any of that. This kid's on his own. And so he was fantastic. So of course, the next exam I gave, I said, hey, well, I'm not even in proctor, So for years, he proctored all my astronomy exams. And if he couldn't show up, there would be 2 students there. It was at one center. And not only that, but he would come and he'd have a class list of 300 students. I said, where did you get that? I don't have that, I get my students by this, I don't even sign in. And so, I mean, that's just the kind of person he was. He didn't joke. You ask him to do something which you have no right asking him to do. And he not only does it, but he does it in a way that you yourself, if you were asked by somebody, would not nearly have put in, half the effort on it. And he was always smiling, always happy, always had that gleam in your eye. You always had the feeling that you had a special relationship with him. But everybody had a special relationship with him. He was that kind of a person. He should have been president, man.
I'm a public speaker, so I wrote it down. I know Juan for 20-some years. To me, Juan was a colleague, a friend, and a visitor. As a colleague, he was very responsible and faithful to his job. He was the first one to come to work and the last one to leave. I always saw him around, even when he came in 7 a.m. something, in the morning, or left after 6. Sometimes I joke with him in the early morning, I ask him, did you sleep in your office again? He answered me with a big smile. After one day, when Bob and I were setting up the lab, the Edward machine, the 409, the machine was so heavy that I couldn't lift it up and walk. So I had to drag it to the table one by one. At that moment, I remembered one. How could a 76-year-old man carry all this heavy stuff? I felt shame for myself because I never appreciate and thank him for what he had done for our department and city college. I'm sorry, Juan, and thank you, Juan. Juan was very friendly. Juan was a friend to everyone in city college, from students to professors, from cleaning crew to dean, from security team to CL team. Luckily, I'm one of his many friends. I always enjoy chatting with him. We share our jokes, joys, foods, and burden. Sometimes he brought in some fresh banana, grapes, or bagel and share with me. Sometimes I brought in some Asia fruit or homemade cake and share with me. We could always count on each other whenever there was a need. When Bob told me about one left us, Bob and I, two big men, couldn't help and quite twice. Without him around, life is not the same anymore. One miss you. One was a mystery to me. I didn't know his age until he left. I never thought he had a son. Friday, before he left, we still have a life chat. We wish each other a good day. And then on the next morning, and then on next day, on Monday morning, I was told he left already. It's very hard to believe he was really gone. It was so sharp that I hope what was playing there with us. We might be laying on the beach in his hometown, Peru, while collecting his social security paycheck. He's still alive. One night I had a dream. I was setting up the lab in the fall night. Suddenly he appeared in front of me. I said to him, "Hey Juan, you are really playing a big joke to us." He didn't say anything. He just replied me with a big smile. So don't be surprised when Juan tap on your shoulder next time. So he's still alive. See you around.
Being friends of Juan, seeing the standard that he set, everything, I mean, it's really so tremendous thing. We can't thank you enough for his, making it, keeping it smooth. Go ahead.
A few words about his total dedication to his work, enormous care he exercised. He would always be the first to come and last to leave. One day he didn't show. But very few people know about this, Sue and I guess. One didn't show for work. We finally find out that he ended up in the hospital. What happened? Somebody disturbed one of his setups. His blood pressure shot up. He ended up in an emergency. And I told him, from now on, I must have your cell phone. When you're not here, call. That's exactly what happened on that day when he didn't show. Called, left a message. I didn't know I was giving the message. On the lighter side, he was so protective of his equipment. Particularly, you remember that ballistic pendulum experiment where the steel ball gets embedded. So he was panicking that these balls would disappear. And he made some students who steal balls occasionally. And I would start my discussion of the experiment. I would actually end. Please be careful. One is extremely particular about his Okay, another thing that most of you probably don't know is whatever Spanish I learned from him. So he used to call all of us comandantes, generales, and he reserved for himself more modest title. It was El Capitan. And a long time ago, I don't know who was in charge of the office then, he put on his mailbox El Capitan. There was no one. It lasted for a few days. I don't know who removed it on whose orders that was gone. But from there on, I used to call him Capitan. He also, you probably don't know that some of you have your Spanish. Fred is Federico. Tim was Timoteo. Adolf was Adolfo. Mike Rubel was Grand Puba, and he was chair. I was his deputy, and I learned that only after his death. I was Pubit. So that was who I still feel like I hear his voice in the corridor and I want to go out to meet him. So he'll always be around in some way. I can remember more things as the compact just said. He was a mystery to all of us. He had two worlds. He preferred this one world here. He loved it, he enjoyed it, and he was just nice, pleasant, helpful to us. Goodness, thanks.
school for some time. I was in the engineering and Lab Department. And I found I was going to know physics. I said, okay, I don't know any machine system because they would change. So a friend of mine knew Bob Coe very well. And he called up Juan. Introduced me to Juan. I looked at Juan and said, first thing I know, I'm going to be working with Phil Rizzuto's clone. So he brought me over to physics and showed me around, so I had a pre-interview before I came. And we became fast friends from that point on. So, I have something called Juanisms. This is my book of Juanisms. And I started taking the pages and I said to myself, this is best left for dinosaur over Second World War, or in his behalf, his clone. So, the things I can tell you about Juan is Juan, as you would say, Juan, is for machos. And Juanito is for mujeres. We would go for coffee. He would look at me straight in the eyes and say, Papa, I'm from Brooklyn. So in Brooklyn, he would have the money. Asked him when his birthday was. He said February 29th. So I'd make it about 19 years old. He took a French class here, and a student asked him, how do you say door? So you think Juan, upstanding individual, would say, Jane. So he said, lady, blah, blah. So the girl wrote, lady, blah. French people. If somebody asked him if there was a good professor for a class, he would say, that's it. Just say, that's it. So was he strong in the lab, as everyone else mentioned? We'd be walking down, who was one? We'd be walking down the hallway, he would just say hello to somebody. They would turn to me and say, it didn't cost anything. So, I had the opportunity this summer to have lunch with Dean Weiss, and he said some very kind words about Juan, and actually went through his whole career with me, which some people don't mention. So, in the end, he is a friend to everybody, and we do this.
I still vividly remember my last conversation with him. He was leaving for the day, and it was in front of the fourth floor elevators. So I mentioned that, I am teaching this lab on Tuesday count. So he goes, oh yeah, from 2 to 4:50. He knew that I am teaching that lab at that time. And it's not me. It is basically, he knew who is teaching what time at what time, which TA is responsible for carrying out what activities. So I told him, okay, I'll see who is different earlier. I didn't know that I am CMA again. To me, one represented what works in our introductory physics labs in the department. He would make sure we all know about this kinds of work. This is the equipment that we have in the labs. He made sure that the labs runs. During the day sessions, I have seen him go around from one lab to another lab. If there were a TA who was teaching the course for the first time, he would make sure that he would be in the lab, going from session to session, helping the TA, but helping the student day. Anytime a piece of equipment or work I've done, one this is not working, he would have a replacement later. And to make sure that this is a equipment are working, the handout sheets are there, the card papers are all in that will make sure all the time. And then he really cared that the students learn. He would be willing to help. But again, I saw in this side also, if the student came up late, like half an hour, he would insist that okay, go to another section and do the help there. So that was one. He had a good sense of humor. That's what I would like to review. One of our distinguished colleagues jokingly told him then he went beyond the topic. Said, Professor Sass and Sass told me Turkey, but see, this is the time around Thanksgiving. It's very dangerous.
Of course, Juan was here when I came here 23 years ago. He'd been here a long time. He was a wonderful friend to everybody, including me. And like Professor Petrucevich said, he had two worlds. He loved this world. And there was another part of that other world that he loved his dog. He had a little female dog, and his eyes would light up, and he would tell me how this dog would come up to him and be so sweet and friendly. When Juan's son came the day after, the first day, Juan wasn't here, and I told Professor Smith, you know, Juan's always here, but he's not here today. We didn't find out what had happened until the next day. And when Juan's son came, and we were going through his office, I found on Juan's desk several copies of A Dog's Plea. Now maybe you know this already. Juan didn't write it, but he has several copies. And I think it was very important to him. And then because of that, it was important to him, I want to read it to you. And if it's too sentimental for you, just realize that this is where Juan's heart was with his dog. Treat me kindly, my beloved friend, for no heart in all the world is more grateful for kindness than the loving heart of me. Do not break my spirit with a stick, for though I would lick your hand between the blows, your patience and understanding will more quickly teach me the things you would have me learn. Speak to me often, for your voice is the world's sweetest music, as you must know by the fierce wagging of my tail when your footstep falls upon my waiting ear. Please take me inside when it is cold and wet, for I am a domesticated animal no longer accustomed to bitter elements. I ask no greater glory than the privilege of sitting at your feet beside the hearth. Keep my pan filled with fresh water, for I cannot tell you when I suffer thirst. Feed me clean food, that I may stay well, to romp and play and do your bidding, to walk by your side and stand ready, willing, and able to protect you with my life, should your life be in danger. And my friend, when I am very old, and I no longer enjoy good health, hearing, and sight, do not make heroic efforts to keep me going. I'm not having any fun. Please see that my trusting life is taken gently. I shall leave this earth knowing with the last breath I draw that my fate was always safest in your hands.
I don't need to tell you how great Juan is, because if you disagree with me, you won't be here. And I cannot possibly believe that anybody will disagree with me that Juan is a great person. I know Juan when I was doing the TA job in 2007 for a physics lab. As many professors already said, Juan is always there. Actually, whether you need him or not, he's always there. And to an extent that you don't even sense that he's there, but he's always there, being there for you whenever you need it. And to some extent, he's just like the air. He's always around you and makes you alive until someday you suddenly found that the air is gone and you cannot breathe anymore like normal. Then you found how, until that point, you know how important he is. So that's why I learned about Juan as a student here. Thank you.
And what both said, he was in what you said, I mean, he more complicated, old human being. I think the reason we've talked a lot about he worked hard, he did his job well, he did his job, but it's not just that he did his job well. I don't know if we'll all be here for somebody who did his job, but he imbued in his job a way of living and a way of behaving towards others. So through his job, he really showed us what a good person, a person who takes other people seriously could be. And I think as someone said, he was someone who looked at a freshman, he looked at a faculty member, an new assistant professor, a new graduate student. He looked at the dean. He looked at all of us, no difference. He looked at all of us with the same just forthrightness. And that's why we're all here, because he was someone who really, I think, is just, doing your job well with great humility and simplicity and really treating everyone well is just something to celebrate.